Hello. How are you? You need some help? No. Okay. Well, good. How are you doing? Good. Today, tonight, so bicycle. Okay. Very nice. There. You and a little bit of actually cold you guys. I swear. I'm like in the numbers. Well, I do. I didn't hear it. It was like the concert we had nothing ago. I was in it, right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's me. I'll be talking to them. Yeah. No, I think there were a lot of concerts that page, so someone called me to say, oh, yeah. I was able to roll one for the second day. The main one that we usually use is roll for parking. I think also the one is roll for parking right now. I guess what it looks like, and I just don't have the time.
Well, fine.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm good. This is part of what we can tell. Because my priority was getting the for my some 8 summer.
Oh, yeah.
Things to go. And then I'm like,
All right, well, Chag Sameach. Do I need both of these? Okay, whatever. Before we jump in, for those who are online, the whole source packet should be attached to the email that included the Zoom link that you're on right now. So if you didn't already see that, now's a good time to grab it. If you are planning to print it, there's one page that you'll need to print in color, or just keep handy and open that you can look at it in color. For us in the room, the one page, the two pages really, the one page that needs to be in color, and an extra page are in color for those who are, that we have printouts here. I think I have enough, but if we're just a little shy, we'll share. So this mic? Okay. I'm wearing two mics right now. It's not enough. Okay. Okay. All right. That section. They're coming around. Okay, so it's gonna be one packet for all 3 sessions. So I've got our breakpoints somewhat built into there. I've already seen reading ahead. Nobody can. We'll have such a hard time not looking ahead. I did not say I don't read ahead, that's. And I'm sure everybody who had the noticed them online has already looked through the whole thing before we got here. Okay. So first, for some context, why don't we keep the extras in the back next to Tammy in case anyone else joins us in person. Okay, for some context, tonight's session I have entitled The Torah of Healthy Disagreement, because almost everything that we're going to look at tonight comes from the Pardes Institute for Jewish Studies program called Machloket Matters. Machloket is the Hebrew word for disagreement from the root of chelek, which means part. That in every conversation, there are different parts. If you're reading ahead, I can't tell if you're getting the context of the end. Should have held off on that. So this first hour, what we're going to look at is kind of the 2 core texts that Pardes uses as their foundational points of what is core to thinking about a healthy machloket, a healthy disagreement, pulling from 2 pieces of rabbinic literature. We're going to first focus on those 2 texts, and then we'll see some kind of commentaries and supplemental text to each of them. We'll do as many as we have time for in the first session. The first session is by far the most text-based. The second session is much more psychological. We actually won't have any rabbinic text or Torah text in the second session at all, but will be a lot of time for conversation. And in the third text, we're going to attempt to live out a healthy disagreement and see if we can be a Sanhedrin, a religious court. So one of the questions, of course, is like, why? Why are we doing this? And he just asked me, is this theme tonight because of what's going on in Israel or because of Hamas? Answer is no. Partially the theme for tonight is based on the fact that I had the opportunity to participate in a clergy fellowship with Pardes for Machloket Matters. And one of the expectations is that if they're going to invest their time in teaching me, I should be teaching you. And this seemed like a wonderful time to do that. And part of why they developed this entire curriculum, ironically, I began this course with them on October 10th. But I had signed up for it well before, because they have been running this particular program for years in different contexts, sometimes like mine for a clergy fellowship, sometimes specifically for Jewish Educators Fellowship, and other times for just anybody who wants to participate. And part of their goal is recognizing that the world has become incredibly polarized, not just in the last 8 months, not just in the last few years, but in the last decade plus. And one of the things we as Jews can contribute is the reality that our tradition is founded on coming into a disagreement to figure out how we're supposed to move forward, having out the disagreement, and deciding what to do next and to go forward from there. That we don't assume that everybody's going to agree. We, in fact, assume that none of us actually knows what the right thing to do is, but if we try it out and study together, we'll get there. And in fact, what is the Jewish way of studying? Never alone, but always in Chavruta or in a group. So Chavruta from the root of chaver, or a friend or a fellow, means that you're never actually supposed to study Jewish text by yourself. It's something that rabbis get very annoyed that we sort of have to do a lot of our time, and we'll make appointments with our colleagues so that we can study together. Because it isn't natural for us as Jews to just sort of read on our own, because when you read on your own, you don't know if you are simply reading onto the text your own opinion, but if you read it with someone else and here's someone else's opinion, you might together come to a deeper understanding of the text. So I'm going to invite everyone right now for a minute, just a short minute on this one, to find a Chavruta and read through just page 1. The text on page 1, and you can kind of look at the questions if you've got one, but from Midrash Psalms 12. I am okay with what my Beit Midrash teachers sometimes called trivrutas. If you can't find just a pair, you need to do a 3, that's fine. We'll get something. For those who are online, we've set it up now. You should now be able to unmute yourselves. You're muted to the room. We won't be able to hear you, but if you want to discuss with each other, you should be able to unmute and hear each other. The screen that you're on is mute for us, so we won't hear you, but you can hear each other. You should be able to hear each other. So Harlan, Geraldine, Linda, if you want to cover together, you're welcome to kind of going forward.
Hello?
I can hear you, Jerry Lynn, but nobody else can hear us.
Okay. The reason I didn't go in is because I was trying to deal with multiple things at one time. I had planned on going in, but it's been a different day. But so what are we
You
doing?
don't have to make excuses.
I'm just saying, baby.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Going to ask us to come to a comfortable or uncomfortable stopping point in our conversations and have the bigger conversation. What do we notice so far? Any thoughts either on the questions on the sheets or other things that you notice coming up? And for those online, I'll try to repeat what I'm hearing in the room so you can get a little more of a sense of what's happening. Things we've noticed or answers to either of the questions. Interesting. So my mom says the 49, like counting the Omer, which I don't know if that was, I hadn't thought of it because tied to it, but it's just because we happen to be doing it on Shavuot, it certainly becomes much more obvious. So we can come back to what we're going to come back to. What's the significance of 49? So 49, a parallel of the of needing to have 49 arguments one way or the other, I'll read through the text to get us get us situated again. Rabbi Yammai said, the Torah was not given in a clear-cut manner. Rather, on every statement that God said to Moses, God would say 49 reasons, or panim, faces, that the matter could be pure, and 49 reasons that the matter could be impure. Moses said to God, Master of the universe, when will we know the truth, or really the clarification of the matter? God said to Moses, go according to the majority. Follow majority rules. If the majority rules it impure, it's impure. If the majority rules it pure, it's pure.
Huh.
Okay, so we've noticed 49 and Omer. Any other things we've noticed about the text, Brent?
Forcing people to talk to each other, listen,
We're forced to talk to each other. Where do we see listen to?
because if the majority rules one way, the majority rules the other.
The minority at least has to listen in order to accept the majority rule. So force people to talk to each other, perhaps listen to each other. Celia. Yes, the Chavrusa system in general helps us get out of the bubble of assuming that everyone thinks the same way that we do. Ben.
Forces you to consider the totality of the circumstance.
Forces you to almost consider, I will tell you why I'm saying almost in just a minute. Consider almost the totality of the circumstances. You're considering any given, is this thing pure or impure? Arlene.
One thing, but this is the way and needed details for reason.
Arlene says, according to this midrash, God actually wants us to argue and to actually think of lots of different reasons things should be one way or another. And furthermore, that when we're arguing that it should be one way, we should be thinking about maybe it could be another way. Lloyd, I saw your hand in.
No matter which way you come out, you're not disobeying God. It's God has given you 49 reasons for it. You can argue either side. So anyone that can create in the greater society was give their voice. Wouldn't be afraid here because they have support from that.
Yeah, God seems to be willing to take whichever way it goes, right? If God says majority of the group actually arguing it says that's the way that it is, then God's with you, kind of on either side that you're arguing. God is with you. It reminds me of the story in the Talmud when they're arguing about whether a particular oven is kosher, and one rabbi says, no, it's definitely this way. And God seems to agree with the minority and turns the river around and makes a carrot tree jump. And the majority goes, it's not in heaven. And God cries or laughs, depending on which variant you are reading, and says, my children have passed. So yes, God's okay and happy with us doing it anyway, either way, as long as we're in the conversation about it and eventually land with the minority or the majority. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to clear ritual activities, we sort of do need an answer, right? Like the Hanukkah candles with the Shammai lights one way and Hillel lights the other way. We kind of do need an answer on like, okay, what's the typical way to do this? How do we traditionally do this? But the argument is part of the process of getting there. Jane and then.
So there's not one answer that is immutable because it can change in different time periods. Majority of the time.
It was very reconstructionist. There's not one answer that it can change at different time periods, and that is part of the process for some of our movements, ours too. That like there's certain pieces of halakha that get revisited and changed as Judaism is lived out, and that's part of we're told why the minority opinions of the Talmud are recorded, because maybe someday we'll need them, or maybe someday we'll need to be reminded that they were already wrong. But that depends on how you want to read why we need them someday. Ben, and then.
Seems like process is more important than the decision.
Process perhaps is more important than decision.
I noticed that 49 is an odd number.
Yeah.
So that you can't have a top. But then 49 is also the product of an odd number times itself. But so is 9, so is 3, they're 9, the 9 is also a product of itself, an odd number. But if we were to take each one of the reasons argued in favor or for pure and impure, in each factor, you ought to be deciding that it leads toward pure, it leads towards impure, and then tally them up at the end. You have to have an odd number decision. But 49 means basically having perhaps not total, but a reasonably exhaustive argument of all of the possibilities.
We'll repeat for online, I think, or summarize, repeat for online. 49 is odd. You can't have a tie with an odd number. And furthermore, not only is it an odd number, it is the square of a different odd number. And then 9 is also the square of a different odd number. I'm not really sure why the 9, whatever.
Say 9 so that it's odd.
Right, you wouldn't say just 9 so it's odd. You want a lot so that there's. Right, right. As Brad points out, it's 49 and 49. There's 49 reasons for yes, there's 49 reasons for no. But 49 still no tie is perhaps significance the number. Rabbi Fuller.
I think God is the ultimate leader. We and whoever our leaders need to understand that there are no leaders and we need to deliver them all.
So God is setting the example that leaders need to think of too, that there are going to be a lot of reasons one way or the other, and we need to thoroughly look at all of the possible reasons. But did I summarize well? And
Notice that the word used is pure and impure, tahor. Because I said, maybe that's just the translation, but it really uses the word tahor, which I thought was an interesting choice of a word. Yeah.
so it's interesting. So Linda Eisenberg is pointing out, we have multiple Lindas. Linda Eisenberg is pointing out that we have tahor or pure is what they're arguing about is in this midrash, are things pure or impure. And I think what's interesting, like that's there as this should be. Whether things are pure or not actually should be easy arguments if you look at the Torah. If you look at the book of Leviticus, when things are declared tahor or tameh, pure or impure, you would think that they're easy to say one way or the other. And yet, even on the things that we think are simple and clear-cut in the Torah, what was the first line of this midrash? The Torah was not given in clear-cut language. Even the things we think are obvious might not be. I want to pull us back to one other piece of the why the 49. Perhaps because it's odd. Perhaps, I think, somewhat related to the Omer, or rather a simple or a similar thought. But if you jump forward just a moment to page 3, where we have the supplementary sources to this text, text 1, text 1.2 from the Talmud in Nedarim 38a. Rav and Shmuel both said 50 gates of understanding were created in the world, and all but one were given to Moses. For as it is said, thou hast made him, Moses, little lower than God. Which is to say, 50 seems to be the number of ultimate truth. And even Moses didn't actually get all 50. But what is on the thought of 49 days of the Omer? My mom is pointing. What's the 50th day, the Omer, which we don't actually count? Shavuot. That the ultimate truth is the Torah itself. Except that's what's not given in clear-cut language. We have to argue the 49. And one of the things we discussed in the fellowship and in preparing for this with Machloket, with the Pardes Institute with Machloket Matters, is if we think about 50 as ultimate truth, if we think we're at 50, we have absolute certainty that we have all the answers, we can't be in the conversation. because we'd be unable to listen. But if we can recognize that it's actually impossible for any of us to have all 50 reasons, even if we feel so strongly that we think we know 49 of them, we can at least listen to another perspective. I was reminded of this text when I was listening to the Hadar podcast called Answers Withheld, and in which Rabbi Shai Held was in conversation with Rabbi Dr. Leon Weiner. And Rabbi Weiner was talking about a time in which he had been davening as a group at the egalitarian kotel, at the mixed area for the Western Wall. And a Haredi group came and tried to take their Torah from them and were spitting on them and kicking them. And he was kicked to a point that he had a very clear footprint on his thigh, because a Haredi man so offended at seeing a mixed minyan and women anywhere near a Torah scroll, this particular one probably not at the 49 zone, kicked him as the Israeli police were escorting the egalitarian minyan, the mixed minyan, away from the kotel. I think the way he described it was before, if anyone has been in the last several years, before there was a distinct Ezrat Yisrael, a distinct section for egalitarian praying actually outside of the main kotel plaza, but rather at the back of the kotel plaza. So for those who've never been, if main kotel plaza is a very large plaza with the wall, and there's a divider about halfway up from the wall, and then a mechitza, a divider, and there's the women's side and the men's side that you then go down behind this dividing wall, or around the dividing wall. And if you want to actually approach the wall, you have to go in a mechitza space, into a gender segregated space. The women's side, if you're facing the wall at the right, or the men's side, if you're facing the wall at the left. We won't get into where that dividing wall is. It's over here. And this group, it sounded like from the way that Rabbi Weiner was describing it, was back here, was kind of behind the wall before the mechitza. So they weren't even actually at the wall, but they were in the plaza. And the police deciding it was probably simpler to remove the victims than actually try to, whatever, escorted them out. And he had this thigh, this footprint on his thigh. And a Haredi child outside came up to him and said, "I'm so sorry someone kicked you, but what you have to understand is how upsetting that is for my community who thinks that this is the correct way to be serving the Holy One." And Rabbi Weiner said, "And you don't think it's just as upsetting to me to have a footprint on my thigh when I thought I was doing the service to the Holy One the way that I think is correct?" And the child, he said to him, "We'll find out when we stand before the heavenly court." Which is to say, this child, somewhere in him, had the notion that he was very much on these are my 49, I am 49 out of 50% sure that this is the right way to do it. But I guess God's the one with the ultimate truth. Maybe we're not going to sit down and talk about it right now, but we'll find out someday at the heavenly court. Someday God will tell us which of us is right, which of us is wrong. We imagine going through the world with that kind of humility when we confront something that we find so incredibly off-putting and offensive. Really hard for me to imagine, I will admit it. But it was a story that really struck me.
I think release, as if we could all let go of whatever those 49% perspectives were.
Rabbi Fuller points out that 49 is all the 49. We have the days of the Omer that get us to Shavuot. We also have the Shemitah cycles of 7 years that eventually get us to the 50th, the Jubilee year, where we're supposed to release everything: property, land, like thought of doing anything on the land, just totally release. And perhaps maybe at that point, we could also release our deeply seated, really tightened into us opinions. Okay, I want us to now flip back to page 2. Actually, let's see, were there? So I think from this one, we get the notion of a requirement for a need for an intellectual humility. That even when we think we're totally right, it's possible that someone else has a whole lot of reasons that they think they're right, even if they don't agree. And an intellectual curiosity to be open to hearing what those other reasons are. And maybe we can keep open just a healthy dose of recognizing that none of us actually knows the ultimate truth. We always come to an argument with our own hearts and our own experiences and influences. Let's go to the second text. This one will probably look a lot more familiar to a lot of us on page 2. So this is the second kind of foundational text of the Machloket Matters framework of thinking. I'll give you a moment to look at it in Chevruta, see what you notice, and see if you have any thoughts of an answer to the question there.
You got any thoughts on this, Harlan?
No, because if you downloaded the sheet, I don't have the same sheet they're talking about. I have different sheets.
Okay, that's what I was, but I was like, well, maybe I'm okay.
So somebody made a major mistake. I got it through the rabbi's email, not through the synagogue email, but her email personally. And I see a whole different thing than what she's talking about. If you
So,
scroll down, do you see a page with an elephant?
yes, I did.
Okay. So then somebody screwed up and sent us the wrong stuff.
This isn't the right stuff. So all of this about what she just said,
No, none of it's there. I mean, I saw something in session 3, a little square box about Hillel and Shammai arguing, but that's about
yeah.
it.
So session 1, this thing about Rabbi Abba and what is
No,
Shemel?
she
That's
didn't
not it.
discuss that yet. Read it, unless I'm going cuckoo here. Too bad we can't comment.
Let me see if I can get Linda Eisenberg.
She's in, no, she's in there.
That's what I'm saying. Let me text her.
Oh.
I just text her.
Okay, so we feel ready to sort of digest and unpack together? I still see some discussion over there. Thoughts, reactions, noticings, additional questions? Cantor.
So, this reminded me of the speech I saw on YouTube years ago of a motivational speaker named Simon Sinek. He said that he went to speak at Microsoft and then he went to speak for Apple, you know, two different contexts. And he said that at Microsoft, 90% of what they were, of the people spent 90% of the time talking about how they were going to beat Apple. And at Apple, 90% of their people spend 90% of the time talking about how they were going to beat themselves. And so he mentioned that if you're trying to beat your competition while they're trying to just move forward like this, that's, in my opinion, what they're describing is an argument not for the sake of that. The example of Korah and Moses, how Korah is maybe he framed it as a way of benefiting the people, but he was really just trying to beat Moses. Whereas Shammai and Hillel, they disagree, but ultimately they're going like this. There are two different people with two different ways, and they're both trying to advance forward.
Try to summarize for
Yeah.
folks online. Cantor brought a speech from, you said Simon Sinek,
Yeah.
who was a motivational speaker that went to talk at Microsoft and then to talk at Apple. And at Microsoft, 90% of the people spent 90% of the time talking about how they were going to beat Apple. And at Apple, they spent 90% of the people spent 90% of their time talking about how are they going to beat themselves, improve upon what they'd already done. So Cantor suggesting perhaps that Microsoft of like trying to beat the other one is where you have a machloket lo l'shem shamayim, a disagreement that is not for the sake of heaven, that can't endure in some way. That's the same as Korach, who is led the rebellion against Moses. We'll take a glance at it in a minute. Perhaps looking like he was doing it for the people, but really about sort of pushing himself forward and trying to beat Moses, versus Shammai and Hillel, really just trying to, they might disagree on how, but they're both trying to get to the moving forward point for Judaism. When they argued about which direction do you light the Hanukkah candles, I brought that one up before. For the context of anyone who hasn't heard that particular piece of Talmud before, it said, how are you supposed to light your Hanukkah candles? And Hillel says you rise in holiness, so you start with one candle on the first night, and the second on the second night, and 3 on the third night, and go up. Shammai says you start with 8, and then go fewer each night, because that's how the sacrifices of Sukkot had worked, and perhaps your light's running out. But at the end of the day, they're not trying to say, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. They're both trying to answer the question of how are you supposed to light your Hanukkah candles? So in Cantor's example, it's the Apple employee saying, how are we going to offer a better product than we already have? Okay, other thoughts or questions on this one? Mindy?
Let's say, I'm not saying this is what's happening or ever happened.
We can play for argument's sake. That's what we're doing.
That wipe out the competition, don't allow customers access to any other broker, hardware, anything that their own Apple, and therefore, and going forward after having wiped out everyone.
Right. So there can be, Mindy's point, there can be a problem with always having the approach of how can we be better, because you might eventually lead to a monopoly that doesn't allow for competition and no longer allows for disagreement that will improve everybody. We'll set aside whether or not Apple actually has done that, because that might take us too far on a tangent for the evening. But that sort of approach could lead to that path, that we actually have to be somewhat careful to keep a machloket l'shem shamayim actually l'shem shamayim. Brad?
Always question and.
Yes, always ask questions. Brad?
I mean,
You didn't read ahead. Yes, I put it in. Okay, yeah, Nancy and then Ann.
Well, this is interesting to me because I've heard this expression, or I could say that I was sure I knew what it meant. But I wanted to share that I read recently. I just thought it was so interesting and surprising that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was such good friends with Antonin, Supreme Court Judge Antonin Scalia. And I read recently that apparently Scalia used to share his opinions in advance with her, knowing that she was going to be taking the opposite opinion, but he wanted her opinion to be crafted as well as possible. And so he gave her the benefit of being able to see his logic and argument ahead of time. So I just wanted to share that. It seems to me that that would be for the sake of betterment, for the sake of having the betterment of the interpretation of the Constitution.
Nancy points out perhaps there's the story of the friendship between Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia, where Justice Scalia would actually give Justice Ginsburg his opinions before they were published, so that knowing that she would be completely disagree with them and completely have opposite opinions, so that they could both produce better work toward the ultimate goal of interpreting the Constitution. Nancy posits perhaps that is an example, I would agree. Perhaps that's an example of machloket l'shem shamayim, a disagreement that is for the sake of heaven. And do you still want, or should I go to 10?
It's human nature. We have choices to make, and this one was this one was that, and it's just like human nature. Okay, you want yours and someone else.
It's really right. It's hard to overcome the human nature of I want what I want and they want what they want, and to just get past that. It's really hard not to be in the machloket lo l'shem shamayim. But that's part of why I think our Torah and our tradition offers us the framework to do it, and the invitation and expectation to do it.
General question is, what is the defining line between Shem Shamayim and Shem Shamayim? So it's only the eyes of the old. So you can have an argument that seems to be personal, but then it has an impact on everybody else as well.
Yeah.
And vice versa. The example that the campus brought up, that you have after people are just worried about getting better, folks are so egoistic, but on the other hand, they actually are taking over the market and becoming monopoly. So there could be a line there, really undefined, that is more.
Right. So Zach's pointing out that we're all kind of going on the 49-49 thing with thinking we know what a machloket l'shem shamayim is, right? That we don't actually know what the line is. It's not so clear. This Mishnah certainly doesn't actually tell us. It says, what are the examples? It says Hillel and Shammai versus Korach. Doesn't even give us like which Hillel and Shammai. We'll see my theory as to which one in a second. But the example of Apple looking altruistic and wanting to be better than it is could lead to negative consequences later, and may not endure as the positive thought. Lloyd and Rabbi Fuller, and I think I saw another hand, Ben.
It seems this statement is going more to the person's intent than it is to the actual fact. And what their intent would will further in God's will, further into the people, so and grandizing it, trying to hurt someone. What is the intent?
Lloyd's positing that the difference between the two machlokot, the two disagreements, is intent. What's the intent? Is the intent for betterment of the group, betterment for how we serve God, or is the intent self-aggrandizement or destruction?
someone similar comment. that One of my teachers talked about Shemayim Haaretz as Shemayim. It's interesting, why don't we use other Shemayim rather than both? If it's for the sake of for more open purpose, then it's for the sake of humanity, egos, or the ultimate interests, and that's both.
Rabbi Fuller points out it's sort of interesting that our dichotomy in this Mishnah is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and lo l'shem shamayim, not for the sake of heaven, rather than l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and l'shem la'aretz, or la'aretz. What would be the grammar on that? But l'shem aretz, like you know, for the sake of heaven, meaning God's domain, for the sake of aretz, for the sake of land, meaning human domain. There's something interesting going on with why is the dichotomy the sake of God or the sake of holy space, for the sake of heaven, and not rather than for the sake of human being, which does sort of make an interesting thought on what is it that was Korach doing something that was actively denigrating God's sanctity, or was Korach's argument strictly human to human? Well, it's hard to say. It's an interesting pointing out of what the dichotomy could have been. I get everybody. Reggie.
Yeah, but Korach was challenging not just the priesthood.
Harlan, we have the right document.
Priesthood was given from God to follow the particular belief. So in a way, you could say it was again such my.
Right. Reggie points out Korach's argument was challenging not just Moses, human to human level, but challenging the entire priesthood and God's setting it up. So perhaps that is part of the challenge of lo l'shem shamayim. So if it could have been a different human to human argument put into the Mishnah than Korach. So let's go ahead and flip ahead past there. So the supplemental texts that Pardes offers are really interesting to read, and I encourage you to take the packets home or download them from the email later and read through them. But jump ahead past page 7 of the Pardes packet into the packet that I started making, which will start over at page 1. Hey, look, it's that thing you said. So these are my theory, and I won't claim to have 50 out of 50 for saying which incidents of Hillel and Shammai. I'm pretty sure on the Korach one, because he really only presents an argument in the Torah once. But this is my thought on why Hillel and Shammai are brought up, is this particular passage. I want you to pay attention as we read through it. We don't actually know what they're arguing about. We have no idea what they're arguing about. That doesn't actually matter. The question is about why are they arguing and how are they arguing. Rabbi Abba said that Shmuel said, for 3 years, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel disagreed. These said the halacha is accordance with our opinion, and these said the halacha is accordance with our opinion. 3 years. It's a long time to be arguing.
Harlan,
And not actually doing the
after page
halacha.
7,
Like by 3
numbering
years,
starts
whatever the
at
mitzvah
1
they're arguing
again.
about has not been fulfilled correctly one way or the other for 3 years. Ultimately, a divine voice emerged and proclaims, both of these are the words of the living God. However, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Beit Hillel. Okay, if we didn't read on from there, why? Could be just arbitrary. God's like, I'm done with this argument. We're just going to make a decision. But as we saw in our first text, that doesn't seem to be God's goal of just making a decision and telling us to live with it, but rather that we should be going through this process of discussing and 49ing back and forth. So the Gemara asks, since both of these are the words of the living God, why were Beit Hillel privileged to have the halacha established in accordance with their opinion? The reason was that they were agreeable and forbearing, showing restraint when affronted. And when they taught the halacha, they would teach both their own statements and the statements of Beit Shammai. Moreover, when they formulated their teachings and cited a dispute, they prioritized the statements of Beit Shammai to their own statements. In the Hebrew Aramaic, shemakdimin divrei Beit Shammai ledivreihen. By prioritize here, I mean just literally they would say those first. So what is this? What is this passage from the Talmud? What is the sugya offering? Is why Beit Hillel's opinion ultimately was the one that we should behave by in this particular 3-year-long argument. We should finally light our Hanukkah candles, hopefully. Shows humility. Humility. Humility shows respect for the other opinion. Celia.
Showing how art is more important than which side is correct.
Celia points out it's showing that how we argue is more important than who's correct. Miriam?
So as a common red professor, this kind of reminded me of the style of the Marian argument, where you would put the other person's opinion first and then sort of put all their arguments forward. And then you put your own, so it's actually a style of argument against me to come around to your opinion, but it is regarded as a more friendly style of argument where you're actually trying to address the opposing school instead of trying to get the people in the middle.
So the what style, say the name, the Rogerian style of argument, that they're following a particular style of argument that we have in debate. Saying all of the other side's arguments first before positing your own opinion is a way to really bring everybody around to your, yeah.
We actually predetermined here, but we aren't talking about basic letters. We don't talk about basic letters. We don't look at how they argue.
That's true. We don't know how Beit Shammai argues. Usually people just assume that they were the.
More acceptable on others.
In other spots in the Gemara, Beit Shammai, or at least Shammai himself, are not so polite. In this particular instance, doesn't say that they don't behave exactly the same as Hillel, as Zach was pointing out. It's good to have them, let's look at it from both sides in the room. But Zach is saying perhaps we don't actually hear what Beit Shammai, how they were behaving in this particular one. Maybe this in the sugya, it's predetermined. The sugya is trying to just come up with a reason that we always follow Beit Hillel. And maybe Beit Shammai was behaving just as agreeably and friendly too. I don't know. Right.
Yes, I remember one of the things about the Hillel itself was that his were a little bit more inclusive as rulers. So it was easier for people to follow. But I remember reading at one point in time that actually Shammai may have had more of his opinions accepted than Hillel. So if you were to go through and tally the arguments in the Talmud that Shammai might have come up.
I'd have to go back and do the tallies, but my understanding is that there are only a handful of opinions that we actually do follow Beit Shammai's. But Reggie's first points for online was that Hillel's opinions, by and large, tended to be a little more lenient and inclusive, tended to be a little bit easier to do. Thank you for remembering my Hillel and Shammai class from last year, a while ago. But that if we actually tally them out, it's not actually necessarily true that Hillel wins more often. I'm not sure. I'd have to go do the tallying. I know I just sort of trust the at large saying that Shammai doesn't win very often. Or Shammai's argument isn't the one we go with very often. I shouldn't say is one. Linda.
I was thinking that there's 49 arguments that Beit Shammai probably was positing. And we don't know if they took into consideration the other 49. But here we see that Beit Hillel, because they're talking about Beit Shammai's opinions, was considering all 49 plus 49.
Linda says that we don't see it, whether or not Beit Shammai was actually taking into account Beit Hillel's 49 argument. But if Hillel is saying, if Beit Hillel, by the way, this is not actually like the two individuals, but they're schools that are having this argument. Beit, the house of, Beit Hillel's school is, if they're saying what Beit Shammai said, they're actually considering all 98 arguments in the attempt to get to the correct whole. They're taking into account Shammai's and they're taking into account Hillel's. I'll point out that in order to say what the other side says first, before saying what you think, what do you have to actually do? You have to listen to what the other side said and not just wait for your turn to speak, which we tend to like to do a lot when we argue. Like, are you done talking yet? Okay, but Beit Hillel, we're being taught in this sugya that the value of Beit Hillel is actually saying and considering the other side's argument first. I want to make sure that we're at least close to when we were going to have the pause time so that we don't end up doing Mariv at midnight. So if you want to jump to just the next page, here's my theory as to which Korach thing, because there's only one instance of Korach. So this is the example that our Mishnah had given of the machloket lo l'shem shamayim, which we've kind of all touched on. I think most of us are at least aware of the story of Korach, but it's worth just seeing it. Now Korach, son of Yizchar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, betook himself along with Datan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, descendants of Reuben. I'll point out, by the way, Reuben is the oldest of Yaakov's children. So there could be an argument with Datan and Abiram from the tribe of Reuben, that maybe they should think that they should have had the priesthood as part of the primogenitor, the eldest child getting, but okay. They don't say that, but I've always wondered. But this group rise up against Moses together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, Rav Lachem, you have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and God is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above God's congregation? When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. Then he spoke to Korach and all of his company, saying, come morning, God will make known who is God's and who is holy by granting direct access. The one whom God has chosen will be granted access. So if we stopped at verse 3, it seems like that group might have a point, perhaps. And yet our commentators tend to assume that it is about self-aggrandizement, as Lloyd was getting to before. That Hillel and Shammai, when they argued, were trying to both get to what is the halacha in this situation. And we ultimately went with Hillel because they were better listeners and that they argued more fairly, if I'm right about which Hillel and Shammai disagreement the Mishnah was referring to. But Korach, it seems, is arguing to win. So at the bottom of this page, and then we'll do our first pause, are Pardes's 4 pillars of a machloket l'shem shamayim, a disagreement for the sake of heaven. Do our best to debate issues without attacking people or harming relationships. Come back to a text with that one at the very end tonight. 2, check your motivation. Are you trying to win or to understand? Are you trying to win or are you trying to solve problems? 3, listen to the other side and be open to admitting that you might be wrong, even if all you can admit is like that little kid in Jerusalem who said, well, we'll find out when we're before the heavenly court. It doesn't change much about how Rabbi Weiner or that child lived out their lives. But there's at least a teeny window of openness to being wrong. Listen to the other side and be open to admitting that you could be wrong. Or consider that you might both be right, even if you hold opposite opinion. I'll pause us here. This was our biggest text study one. The next one, we'll get to do a little bit more psychology, because that's my undergrad and I'm excited about it. But for now, we're supposed to do a 10-minute break. I'm about 5 minutes behind of our original, which is great because we had a 10-minute buffer built in. If you looked online, if you noticed online, the last session ends at 10:20, but services start at 10:30. We have a 10-minute buffer. Great. So we'll take 10 minutes now. Let's come back together at 8:15. restrooms and, or snacks out, or are we doing snacks later? Round one of Little Nosh is available. How they quote it.
It's almost like a citation. They're gonna be live like, oh.
Wonder what this- Yeah, I'll have to check the, we'll have to check with the, that would have been. We'll have to check what the ask for is good. Well, I didn't know anything about. Okay. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Which was the thing I didn't say that we could go.
and occasional. Right now. So, yeah, it's actually. Now,
So I heard the cats. Okay. Sure.
Getting them back.
If we said that, you're gonna go back and say, I mean.
Okay. Our folks online are back, I can tell. I'm working on we're waiting until everyone's ready to be back in the room too. We're, 30% there already. Well, I think we printed 30. I think they may all have gone out. If you are willing to share a handout, that would be helpful. It looks like we have actually used up what we need. Who needed one? Or you're sharing? This session, you can settle into where you were sitting before, but you will probably end up moving at least a little bit. Does anyone has everyone found a packet or someone to look on with? Okay, thank you, Lynn. Okay, so we're on page 3 of my packet, which has an adorable picture of an elephant and a stick figure riding on it. By adorable, I mean it's a picture of an elephant, which is therefore automatically adorable. Okay, so we're gonna start with. This is based on the work of a psychologist, Dr. Jonathan Haidt. If anyone has ever come across the book, The Righteous Mind, he wrote this book. I meant to bring it so I could hold it up and show you what the cover looks like, but I forgot. But he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, looking at why do good people disagree so vehemently. That's the premise of the book. It says, the first thing to know is that in many ways, our brains are like a rider who is on top of an elephant. If anyone took Rabbi Grossman's class and remember when she pointed out several of the times in which our amygdala would be activated and we are therefore going into the very emotional, visceral, angry reaction, that's the elephant. So for those of you who are not neuroscientists and don't remember the word amygdala, elephant. And the rider is our much more level, logical, conscious, verbal thinking brain. So if you're imagining yourself as a person sitting on top of an elephant, how's it going? Wherever the elephant wants you to go. It sounds like fun, says Tammy. If it were a camel, Brad would say Lawrence of Arabia. Okay. If it were a camel, Lawrence of Arabia's. Lenny.
So the concept that you're talking about had anything to do with college psychology 101, cognitive dissonance?
Not quite cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you hold two seemingly opposing opinions at the same time. This is more about how do you control your emotional instinct. If you are riding on an elephant and you would like to turn right at the next street, but the elephant isn't interested in turning right at the next street, is that going to be an easy thing to do? Not unless you have food. If you read, there are a lot of the pop psychology about dieting today, by the way, uses this same imagery, and the elephant is your cravings. But because it's similar, it's the like, what's the kind of emotional, often decision fatigued, reactive brain gonna do, and how often do you have control over that? What kind of level of work does it take to regain control of it? And that Dr. Hyde says, is part of why it can be so difficult to breathe and to remember to do the 49-49, and to remember to listen to what the other person is saying before you say, okay, my turn to speak. That it can be really difficult. Because the writer only has so much control, can only do so much to change direction when the elephant is very determined. Sometimes the writer has to work really hard to stay on, especially if the elephant is stampeding. But our awareness of it can help us. Yeah, Lenny.
Well, when I was a little boy, on Saturday morning when my parents still sleep, I get up early and watch Andy's game. And the little boy rode an elephant in India. And it seemed to me that the little boy would steer the elephant where he wanted to go. And the elephant just went. And the guy had a little stick.
Right. So Lenny's pointing out there, you watched a show. What was the show called?
Well, Andy,
Andy's Game.
it's hilarious.
In a hilarious show called Andy's Game that Lenny would watch when he was a child, that had a child riding on an elephant that did seem able to guide the elephant where he wanted to go. He had a little stick, he had food, maybe, as Celia said, that it is possible if you know how to do it. I know if I were to get onto an elephant on Friday, once Yontif is over, I would have no idea how to get it to go where I wanted it to go. But if you're able to train yourself to know, in the literal sense, I would have no idea how to steer an actual, like, but also I probably, certainly not on a Friday before Shabbos, but I wouldn't actually, we don't actually know how to until we're trained how to. But therefore, even with our brains, we can, and it can be very easy to get off track. When our identities or core values are threatened, it is extremely hard. It's harder to slow down the stampeding elephant. It's a lot of what Rabbi Grossman was speaking about in her class, and how everyone, frankly, reacts to the propaganda. And even when we're not threatened, it can be really hard to control if we're kind of going on autopilot. So here's an exercise to show it. This is the one that if you are online and have printed out a black and white copy, switch to a color version. In the bottom box on page 3, as quickly as you can, read out the words that you see written there. Go. Okay, I heard some that were on the quicker side, so I'm just finishing up. Easy, hard, weird. Read the words, it's easy, okay? Now, do the opposite as quickly as you can. Say the colors of the words, do not read the words.
Say the colors, but don't read them. Okay.
No, the image had a color profiling program. So I didn't set a stopwatch, but my impression is the second version took a little longer for most of us. Because our brains are used to seeing words as words. And yes, it's debatable whether the word gray is written in, I don't know, orange, tangerine, mango, I don't know. Or if the word black is written in eggplant or some other shade of purple, but. Yeah, and if pink is black or gray, yeah. So our elephant can get off course even when it's just something as minor as saying red instead of reading green. All the more so when we have to actually get ourselves to slow down and think things through. Okay. That's one thing to hold. The other piece from Jonathan Haidt's work, and this is the core of the book, of his book, is we'll look at page 4. So at the top, see the word innate.
Yeah.
Nature provides a first draft which experiences, then revises. Built in does not mean unmalleable. It means organized in advance of experience. So we have an image of an example where with innate quality, in this case, the sense of taste, right? The anatomy of our tongue and taste buds. Tell me if I'm wrong. We have innate senses of taste. Much of our tongue can detect umami. The tip of our tongue detects sweet. Very tip around the edges, salty. The outer edges, sour, and toward the back is where we detect bitter or spicy. What's true about these innate tastes and that we can all taste them? We also have different preferences. And our preferences may or may not be innate. So we all have our innate tastes, and some of us prefer some, while others prefer others. I am particularly, I at least am more partial to salty and sour than I am to sweet. Doesn't mean I don't like sweet, but I'm more partial to salty. Others of you may have a different opinion. Others of you may really like spicy and bitter. I actually like bitter, and some don't want to go anywhere near spicy. Right? We all have our different sensitivities to the same innate tastes. Some of those, by the way, even with our very food preferences, are based on not just our own born personalities, but also based on our experiences. What do we remember eating a lot as a kid? What do we associate with a particular memory? Or even our tastes get affected by our own experiences. So, reason I'm bringing that is that Jonathan Haidt's moral foundations theory is that we all have these 6 moral foundations. They're kind of all each on a spectrum, and that we all have these innate moral foundations. But what differs between people is how we prioritize or prefer them. That all of them are innate to all of us, but we each have a different ranking or prioritization of them based on to some degree nature, our own born-in personalities, to some degree nurture our experiences, our surroundings, the opinions of the people that we most often encounter, all kinds of different ways that can affect these. I'm going to read through each of them. I want you to, while you're reading them, think a little bit about what do you think you are? And then we're going to come back to them as. So one of the foundations is care versus harm. This foundation is related to our long evolution as mammals, with attachment systems and an ability to feel and dislike the pain of others. It underlies virtues of kindness, gentleness, and nurturance. 2, fairness versus cheating. This foundation is related to the evolutionary process of reciprocal altruism. It generates ideas of justice, rights, and autonomy. Loyalty versus betrayal. This foundation is related to our long history as tribal creatures, able to form shifting coalitions. It underlies virtues of patriotism and self-sacrifice for the group. It is active anytime people feel that it's one for all and all for one. 4, authority versus subversion. This foundation was shaped by our long primate history of hierarchical social interactions. Underlies virtues of leadership and followership, including deference to legitimate authority and respect for traditions. Sanctity versus degradation. This foundation was shaped by the psychology of disgust and contamination. It underlies religious notions of striving to live in an elevated, less carnal, more noble way. It underlies the widespread idea that the body is a temple which can be desecrated by immoral activity and contaminants, an idea not unique to religious traditions or to any one religion. And then liberty versus oppression. This foundation is about the feelings of reactance and resentment people feel toward those who dominate them and restrict their liberty. Its intuitions are often in tension with those of the authority foundation. The hatred of bullies and dominators motivates people to come together in solidarity to oppose or to take down the oppressor. As I've mentioned, we each prioritize these differently and tend to assume one of the problems when we prioritize differently is that we don't look at it the same as I like salty food and you like sweet. Because we tend to assume if someone prioritizes one differently or that they are devoid of. If you are someone for whom liberty and oppression is primary, and you encounter someone for whom authority and subversion is primary, tend to assume that one another is devoid of morals rather than enter into conversation. Yet if we can acknowledge that it's a difference of prioritization, we can at least enter into the conversation from a place of curiosity. So, have here, for those who are online who want to play along, I have here a slip of paper or a packet of slips of paper in rainbow order that correspond to the 6 here. I'm going to hand, and I've written on them each one just for keeping track. But for online, the red slip of paper is care versus harm, orange is fairness and cheating, yellow, loyalty and betrayal, green is authority and subversion, blue is sanctity and degradation, and purple is liberty and oppression. For those online, you may not be able to like grab something of all 6 of those colors, but if there's a primary one, go grab something of the color. Again, they're in just simple rainbow order. For those in person, I'm gonna come around, I'm gonna hand everybody a stack, and I want you to take a minute to put them in your order. Right now, they're just in the order of 1 through 6 on this sheet of paper, but I want you to take a minute and put them in your order. Not shuffling, take some time to honestly. Take some time to honestly think through. Yes, go for it. Okay. I saw you. Not discussing that, we're just. We'll have it, man. Oh, but. I mean, I encourage us to at least try for putting them in order for ourselves. The next step will be discussing. How many have yours where you're comfortable? How many have ordered them? And you're still working? And you're still working on your order? This shouldn't actually be easy because it's the same thing as like, do you like chocolate better than cake?
Yes.
And not a no because tortilla chips are better, no because they're both good. Like, this shouldn't actually be easy, but if you're struggling, that's okay. For some of us, we're very clear, and for some of us, we kind of have to think a little. Okay. You're online and feel like holding up an object of the color of your favorite. Charlie's like, "Ah." We can't actually see the rest of it. She's saying she needs to find something. Yeah, if your markers are Barbara.
Yeah.
2, 2, 5, 5, number 5. Barbara saying number 5, sanctity indigo. Okay, is everyone except one done? Everybody feel like everyone else feel like you have an order that you're comfortable with in this particular moment at 8:37 on the 6th of Sivan? Like, okay, if so, hold it up with your top one kind of facing forward and find someone to talk to who is holding up a different front color. That involves getting up and moving around. Once you have a partner, talk to each other, tell each other why the order, what kinds of experiences in your life have led you to those, to that order. Resist the temptation. I'm gonna grab attention for 1 second. Yeah. Resist the temptation when you're discussing of convincing the other person to change their order. And just take an opportunity to talk to somebody about how they prioritize their moral foundations differently. We'll give this about 10, even 15 minutes.
Okay.
And for those online, if you want to unmute and just chat with each other about your order, you're welcome to also.
Anybody there? Hello, Barbara.
For folks who are online, you should be able to unmute to talk to each other. And we won't be able to hear you in the room, so you won't be disruptive if you want to. If Barbara, if you want to chat with Geraldine or Harlan.
I don't have any colors to show anybody, so I'm not showing anything.
I have to be creative in my colors. That's the best I could do.
It's good.
Okay. I don't know how well it lines up with everything, but
We're
I
just
don't-
using numbers.
Yeah. I
Carl's
don't
here.
have any colors
I know
available
he's not
either.
really in the picture, but here he is.
there he
'Cause
is.
I can't read the materials if you know, until the computer enough to catch us both, because he's got the materials on a different computer.
So you're just using like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like liberty and sanctity and
I'll tell you, I'm grouping them. It's like, you know, and
Oh, no, I can go through all of it.
I know number one,
Leaving
number
like 10
2 and 3 are a tie, and the other 3 are a tie.
okay. This is interesting though, huh? Well, I'm gonna put my headbands back. I was trying to come up with something.
It was just easier to look at the numbers than to go find colors.
I was making up colors. I'm like, well, this is close. Instead of being pink, it's going to be purple.
And since it's the two of us here, I'd have to find a whole lot more pieces.
I see what you're saying in terms of how the groupings.
You can't write down.
Okay. Have any examples you want to discuss?
Well, Carl and I are very different, which is
Okay.
interesting because we've been married a real long time and gotten along okay.
Well, you know.
So we've become proof that you know, that one's, you know, moral philosophy is not necessarily grounds for fighting.
Right.
And also this may be of a different class, that these aren't the things that we fight each other about.
What do we fight each other
Oh,
about?
well, there's always something.
Yeah, chores. But
Yeah, okay, well, we got something going on. Okay.
Yeah.
But this isn't it.
I got it. Okay, so
Loyalty betrayal is very important to me. And I put it as number one because I've been betrayed.
Here is your reminder.
yeah. Mhm.
Oh, it's not kidding.
okay, we'll sleep late tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I
Got your
didn't want to be the one to have us going to bed at 1 a.m.
Yeah, except it's Shavuot. That's what you do.
Okay, no, I'm willing to do it, but I didn't want to be the one to cause it.
Okay. One very important thing I learned is that on Shavuot, I don't remember the other one, that you're closest to heaven. And if you go out at midnight on the first night of Shavuot, it was for me an incredible spiritual experience. Fortunately, it wasn't raining. It might not have been so spiritual if it hadn't been a lovely night when I did it.
It's not midnight. So.
No, but that the heavens are supposed to be that, and I'm not sure if it's Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or but or Simchat Torah, but that's there's another night that where we're supposed to be as close to heaven, and so it was completely irrelevant to the study subject, but definitely an amazing emotional experience and spiritual experience.
Yeah, this, it's kind of interesting because as I, as I'm on this journey, I know that for me, when I was at Unity of Washington, D.C., part of the prayer team there, one of the things that we would do, like once a year, this particular time was to have 24-hour prayer sessions where it was structured. Would begin with a so-and-so, maybe there's a song, and then something, whether it was an affirmation or scripture reading or something to discuss for that amount of time, and then go into silent sort of meditation, and then do the same thing. And I thought, when we first talked, I'm like, okay, all right, let's see. But it was so amazing. It was really like a different kind of experience. And just, I thought it was very rewarding for me to be able to have that experience. And it's sort of like, reminds me, if you're studying and you're studying with other people, that could be like the same experience. I know the rabbi from Women's League today was talking about she's going to go to her sister's synagogue because they'll go through the night, plus they have food.
Yeah. And for me, other than food so that you're not hungry, even though I'm a foodie and a food-oriented person, it's not important. But I do think that I would not have had that incredible spiritual experience without the study first and then the short service. And then we went home and it was midnight and I went out there and on the deck and just stood there, and it was so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just felt so wonderful.
Yeah, I don't see too many stars out there. So
Not yet. It's still, so, oh, we gotta bless the candles. I'm gonna mute us because I lit the candles just to be sure in case I didn't get to bless them on top, but. Okay. So I'm flexible about when I say the blessing. I just wanted to get the candles lit first. Oops, hit them. Okay, there. I stopped the video. So, but it's getting dark. I don't know. But since the candles were already lit, if I was late saying the blessing, I figure it doesn't matter. Oh, I can't hear you now.
Aren't you supposed to light them like 18 minutes before sundown?
Yeah, they were lit. I already lit them. I just didn't say the blessing. I was waiting to say the blessing because, but I may be, I'm probably late, but I figured they were lit. So that was the important part.
Give us like 2 more minutes to.
Okay,
Stay
yeah. Wait a minute. Is
2-minute warning for your
muted?
individual
She is now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or is she hinting that we're muted?
No, we're not muted, but
Okay.
Geraldine is, but I think if it's 2 more
Thing
minutes.
here is,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm gonna mute us.
You convinced. I said you convinced. And the culture you're better in. And the culture you're better in. Culturally, Americans are terrible today. Okay, ready to, okay, ready to come back together and share a little bit? So out of sheer curiosity, how many people, even though I said resist the temptation to convince, found yourself convinced and rearranged a little bit in your conversation? How many ended up rearranging a little bit from your conversation? Did, even though you didn't try to convince, like, no one tried to convince you, but you found yourself, oh, actually, listening to your partner, like moving. No, I'm just curious. I know Jane did. I did a little. Okay. I'm curious to just hear a little bit of reflection. Or you were saying like the first and yeah. No, you don't have to share. So, and I'm just curious for the next like 5-10 minutes to finish out this particular section of our evening. Any reflections on the experience? Any things that surprised us? Any things you noticed about the process? Danny and I were talking about the negatives versus the positive, prioritizing the negatives versus positives might have affected, or you had a.
What I should think was that was a very, I wanted to shoot the first one was very important because the company's decision was I paid for it. And after that, the rest of the committee was really like, there is still a right way, I replaced one with the other, but the most important to me today. And I said that maybe a year ago, we would not have been this one. I chose this one. And after that.
Right. So Aura shared that for her at least, like coming to the decision of which one was top, which one was going to be first, felt like the most important decision, not necessarily easiest, but the most important decision. And from there, where the rest fell was like, okay, whatever. And she said today, at least, the liberty oppression, the purple one for those in the room, was top, and it may or may not have been a year ago. By the way, it's like that's again true with our taste buds. Some days the best thing in the world is Mexican hot chocolate, spicy chocolate, always true actually. And some days, the saltier, that we do have changes, especially in what's happening to us, around us, or what has happened to us. Other reflections? I saw Celia's hand. So hearing not being convinced to change your order, but that having the conversation at least allowed for understanding of why someone else has a different order. Colleen.
So I know that it's easier to figure out what the last and the next one than backwards.
For Helene, working backwards made most sense, like which one was least important, and then, okay, next least, and you land on knowing what's most important by doing it that way. Lenny and then Dr.
Liberty. They're not free. That fairness against cheating. Fairness. Unlike trouble, cheating. Care on.
Being open to other opinions.
Care on. You should take care of people, not harm them. Loyalty, betrayal. You should be loyal. And not betrayed, though I have been betrayed. Sanctity, degradation. Certain things are sacred. And my authority versus subversion. I used to be a professional subversive when I was a teenager. And I was in the Vietnam War. I've been in jail, in jail. Everyone I ever admired was in jail. So I feel like I should have said one.
So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to.
Like,
so perhaps that's higher is something that's important to you. Okay. Okay. I want to make sure others have a chance to share their reflections as well. So thank you. Dr. Nagel.
This is a role within the group, and then somebody sort of emerged as the moderator. What are the two of them? And I wonder if that happened in other groups, that somebody sort of created that role of being the moderator and moving.
Dr. Nichols curious if other groups kind of ended up with moderator. By the way, I did say find a partner. So if you formed a group, that's fine. But that was why there was no instruction for moderator. Did other groups that were more than a pair end up having moderator? I know Aura seemed to be doing it over here. Because there's a certain need for it.
Were there other gangs for?
Yeah, there were other. You were not the only multi-Vruta. It's good to have the conversation with a lot. Yeah, that's part of why they come back together as a group. Yeah. So to some degree in group conversation, even about something about thinking about our own morals, we still need a moderator. Nancy, I saw your
comment. Our group had some sort of sociological curiosity that led us to explore how ours compared to people from other groups.
That's fair. That's very fair. They start in pairs, and then there's the sociological curiosity, as Nancy put it, to know how other groups put theirs. Yeah. Ben, and then Dan.
Yeah. One was from and vice versa. I realized that 1, 2, and 3. That is. Care, harm, fairness, cheating, and loyalty, betrayal are actually very strongly tied to each other.
Yeah. Ben pointed out were you with Mindy? Ben pointed out in his pairing that 1 and 2 were that each other's 1 and 2 were one had 1, the other had that as 2, and vice versa, and then 3, and that the first 3, as presented on the sheet, care and harm, fairness and cheating, loyalty and betrayal, are very connected to each other. And in truth, they're all quite connected to each other. The authority and subversion and liberty and oppression, those 3 are also quite connected to each other. If you talk about importance of religious tradition, who has the authority to set with it? No, and who has who is the authority and who is the oppressor? Those are quite linked to each other. They're all somewhat linked. Reggie. And, oh, I'm sorry, Sandra. Sandra will come back. I'm sorry.
One thing if your point of view was on a personal basis, you have different ordering than if it was in a larger, like, communal basis.
Thought about it from your own individual space. Put it in a different order than what you would might put it in. Thought about like what the larger world should be in your mind, or okay. It's interesting of like, what do I think I need to do the most of? Right, or it's a very interesting reflection. Sandra.
Although I'm saying, you were just saying, it seems to me as we discussed each of the parts, I understood David's view of loyalty to look a lot like you of care. And, you know, the more we discuss our thoughts about it, and when we're tired, the more it seems like all one thing, you know. How related they were, and it was a real gift to hear his thoughts about what I had just been thinking about. Like the opening of the garden and overlapping.
And you're saying when we open ourselves up to listen to one another's experiences and understanding of the terms, like this is an imperfect system because by each define loyalty a little bit different. Or any of these words, like, which is why there's an attempt at a little bit of a definition here. But when we open ourselves up to really hear the experiences and the reasoning from one another, we really expand our perspective, understand the other person better, and understand where they might be coming from. I saw Mindy.
I in one of the meetings had 3 minutes to do what that's why the one that really captured my attention was the liberty, freedom, and justice. Freedom from tyranny, oppression, humanity, but also because of what so freedom of speech.
I don't want to do a reflection on an individual, what each of yours were, because that was part of what doing it in the group was important to do. But what I'm hearing from you is that right now, putting the liberty and oppression primary is also about what's happening now. So a number of you asked if I want these back or if you can keep them. If you would like to keep them, you are welcome to keep them. Because you might put them in a different order. And if you want to go back and reflect on where am I coming from right now? I'm finding my elephant going a little off course. What's happening? Oh, my loyalty button is getting pushed. It might help so if you want to keep them and to think about them and to reorder them as experiences arise, or as my dad and I were talking about when I was just sort of coming around the room. Sometimes I know for me, I prioritize them based on the first word of each of these pairs of words. Like which of the first words that I find most important and most positive. I probably would have come to a different order if I had instead focused on the second words and said which of these are most offensive to least offensive to me. If I had put to which one's going to really rile me up the most as my primary, and recognizing that therefore that spectrum of values is really in there for me. I might have done a different order. So you're welcome to keep them and you're welcome to revisit the exercise as you'd like. And you're welcome to keep the sheet. If you'd rather just keep the sheet and you don't need little slips of construction paper, I'm happy to take them back. So let's go ahead and take our second break. I think officially this one was for 20 minutes so that we have time to really enjoy our cheesecake. Instead of scarf it down, now you have time to linger over it. If you are someone for whom the sweet is your primary taste of choice, there are plenty of choices. And as of sometime during this session, the Yom Tov has officially started. So I'll encourage you, if you've got your phones, to set them aside for the rest of the evening.
So Geraldine, what did you get for a snack, for a dairy snack? You're muted.
Thank you
What
for
did,
telling me that because I was steadily talking to you.
oh,
I don't have any dairy snacks
ah,
here. I really thought I was going in, like I said, going in live,
right.
the synagogue with some
I
things.
did too, but I was just so tired today after work. I
Yeah,
said, oh my God, if I have to go in and then go for services, I'm gonna not be able to get home because I'm gonna be dead tired.
right, exactly. So, like, it's a lot of emotional stuff has been going on, Harlan,
Same here.
and sometimes, it wears me out.
Yeah. Oh, if you're interested, Geraldine, this Saturday is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the Columbia Festival of the Arts at the lake.
Yeah.
Dancing and all kinds of things. I'm going Friday afternoon by myself, and then Saturday, I'm taking Eve.
Oh, she's gonna enjoy that. She's gonna
Yeah.
enjoy that. My problem right now is my gait, and I've had one injection of cortisone, the steroid in it, and I'm due for another one.
Oh boy.
With this problem, I get apprehensive about because I just don't trust my hip.
Right. Oh boy.
That's just, it is what it is, and I'll keep working towards it. There are a couple other things but I had to wait 6 weeks between the shots.
Oh boy. For me, everything is stress at work
Yeah.
and just things like that. Like today, my messenger device on texting decided that it didn't like my supervisor's phone number for some reason and started hiding all of her messages.
Oh my.
And my carrier couldn't fix it. So tomorrow I have to go to Target because they handle my phone and see if they can fix it. Otherwise, I might have to buy a whole new phone or switch carriers.
Mm.
And that's a pain in the butt
Okay.
because for some reason, some of her stuff came through later with another text messaging, but when she sent pictures, they didn't come through.
Well, last week there was a big time glitch that
Right.
I don't know if you noticed that because
But this is what I'm saying. This time it's only her number. Nobody else's. I can make calls. I can get texts from other people. It's only her number. I went directly to hide my messages. So they came through, but they were hidden.
Huh. Ooh, that's kind of, yeah, that's,
Mm,
you have a dairy snack?
non-dairy,
Oh, that's right. You got,
lactose intolerant.
yeah, yeah.
I found an avocado chocolate ice cream bar,
What?
a giant. It's called Cado for avocado.
Okay. Is it
It's
good?
there. Oh, it's delicious. I want to eat the whole box. Mm.
To check that out.
But I can't because I'm on like a FODMAP diet, and they limit the quantity of carbohydrates and fruit and all kinds of foods. So I can eat a ton of stuff, but just small quantities.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds interesting. You know,
It's
it's kind
boring as hell.
of, my dad will go through different phases with food, and this was when my mom was still alive. I'm not,
Mhm.
because primarily they'll eat the ice cream or what's the other thing? I forgot what
Mhm.
the sherbet. And I would say for two of them, but the freezer is like 4.5 gallons of ice cream and stuff. Now the containers are small, but
Mhm.
that'll go through a phase where he'll go through that. He's got to have that, and then that's gone for a while. You know, and once in a blue moon, I might want a scoop or something. But it's
Right.
so.
Well, my favorite food in the whole world when I was a kid, I don't eat anymore because as a comfort food, all it did was make me fat.
What was that?
Mac and cheese.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. I like mac and cheese
That was
too.
my comfort food, though. I'd come home from camp. My mom would have mac and cheese on the table. I'd come back from a Boy Scout meeting, a Cub Scout meeting. My mom would have mac and cheese on the table. I'd have a hard day at school. I'd come home,
It's mac
mac and
and
cheese. And Geraldine, I was the fattest kid in school. Let's put it that way.
cheese.
And it took me a long time to learn how to eat, and the doctors don't know anything about nutrition because I said to the doctor, I'm so depressed, but maybe that's why I'm eating too much. He said, no, people don't eat if they're depressed. They don't overeat. Now we know the difference. They do,
You can go
you
one
know?
way, either not eat or overeat.
I know, but in the 80s, that was not the belief. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
That was not the belief. I mean, I went years ago, if I wanted comfort food, you know what I would get? I would grab a package of Fritos.
I hadn't heard.
I wanted the salty.
They still make those.
Yeah, I wanted the salty. But you know what? You have to admire people though who take advantage of opportunities. There was this Mexican fellow working for Doritos. He was a janitor, and he always wondered why Doritos didn't have any Mexican inspired products, really hot, spicy stuff. So he cooked some up of his own. And one day, and he was sampling it and giving it to his friends, and they loved it. They said, "Why don't you write the recipe out for Doritos?" Now they're not going to listen. One day, he was in the office sweeping up, and the phone rang. And he answered it, and it was the president of Doritos. So he didn't tell him who it was. And he said, I work here. Why don't you have spicy stuff for everybody? And they're like, that's a great idea. He said, do you have an idea? He said, yes, I've cooked up some stuff and I wanted to send it out in a recipe. And they said, okay, we're going to fly you out to the president's office. Bring the food with you. So he did. And when the president found out you're a janitor, he was flawed. And he tried it. He said, I love it. And they made him the president of Spanish version Doritos or Spanish treats. And the guy retired last year, billionaire.
Wow. Come on, think about something we can be. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
Yeah, some of the I think I'm a straight up Doritos person, but some of them are pretty spicy. What did I have the other day that I had to say whoa, 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 whoa? Because I don't know what I had.
I wouldn't touch Doritos. They're too spicy for me. Even the older ones were.
Something I had was oh, I know. I put let's see what's going on here. I put too much hot sauce on my fish.
Oh, I can't stand the hot stuff.
What's going on? All right, let's see here. Okay.
Oh dear. Now I'm sorry my ice cream is gone.
As long as you enjoy
But
it.
Geraldine, I'm glad I didn't buy what I used to buy in the container like this, about this big, the pint, because when I
Okay.
got depressed or anything like that, I'd be eating the whole pint, and that's not good,
Yeah.
you know?
Hey,
Well, I don't drink, so that's my vice, if that makes sense. I can't hear you. You're muted again.
how do I keep getting? I must have tapped something. I said there are quite a few people who don't drink alcohol, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
quite a few people that should stop drinking alcohol.
Tell that to Tyler.
Okay.
He knows vodka by its first name.
Okay.
Tyler, and you know who drinks vodka like this? A Dante.
Yeah, they just drink a shot.
Yeah, but he drinks a lot of it too.
Well,
He
that's
said, you know,
relative.
but that much liquor is not good for you either. You should
Yeah.
have seen people at Wine in the Woods a couple of weeks ago. They were coming back with little red wagons filled with bottles of wine.
Yeah, I was there. I haven't been to that, but somebody was performing that I know.
Right.
So I went just for that, really.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I hadn't been to Wine and Woods probably in 25, 30 years or close to
Wow.
30, maybe right after it started, I went.
Wow.
But I have to tell you, they really accommodated me very well. I parked in the handicap parking section by
Right.
the that other building, whatever the medical building is, and they had a golf cart. He's
Oh,
right around at my car. Don't worry about it. Let me get your chair. Took me up to the entrance and checked in, and the accessibility woman, the woman came over. She said, I want you to sit here. Don't worry about it, because the stage where I had to go was quite a distance.
oh.
And she said, just wait here. And I did, and it was beautiful. Somebody
But you ordered all that in advance, right?
no, no.
How'd they know to come and get you?
Well, they had the golf carts for handicap parking anyway. So
Oh, oh,
yeah.
oh.
But then when I got to the entrance, you know, they were very
Oh,
accommodating. And so
nice.
they got somebody to bring a golf cart up, and he took me all the way to the stage. It's that big green arch.
Right, that's the chrysalis.
Yes, took me to that.
Oh, he just
Not only took me there, but grabbed my chair, placed it on the hill, made sure I was all right, told me to take out my phone,
Wow.
take my number, because I said I wasn't staying all day. I was
Right.
coming to hear a specific performer. Okay.
Hmm.
And he said, call me. And but I invited other friends if they wanted to come out and whatever. They were kind of delayed, and I'm like, I'm growing, I'm fine, I'll be fine. And and he said, when you're ready to go, call me, let me know, or text me, and I'll come get you. And that's exactly what he did. And
Oh,
instead of
wow.
transferring me to another golf cart, he says, I'm taking you directly to your car.
Oh,
I couldn't
wow.
have asked for it. I had to applaud them all. Okay.
That is Awesome.
It is
And
amazing.
you're lucky you got good parking there, because the folks over at Whole Foods, half the time they don't even like people parking for the lake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, they kind of made that choice when they bought that property, huh?
Yeah. Well, they can't, the police said they can't chase you away, but they said it is on the right side is Whole Foods property, and on the left you can park for the lake. But you know what? That's BS, because the lake belongs to everybody.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, so yeah, I saw, because it was supposed to rain that weekend, right? So they
Right.
had, and the guy said he had been working at Wine and Woods for 30 years. And because I
Wow.
felt like I was in a parade, he knew everybody. We're waving and he's waving, I'm waving. And so he said, it's kind of nice that it's overcast for a couple of reasons. Because I guess last year it was really humid and people were passing out and all this other kind of stuff. But people set up their chairs and they were prepared for the rain. They had all sorts of stuff, canopies, all sorts of stuff out there.
Oh,
And then
wow.
what really impressed me was the number of people with wagons,
Ah,
wagons pulling,
right. That's what I mentioned.
yeah, their chairs and their food and you're right, and then going and buying the bottles or whatever they wanted, so yeah, it's kind of
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. So I had a choice. There were three groups, all different, meeting Friday night. One is a games group. There was
Uh-huh.
another one, a singles group meeting at at the Union Jack, and then
Oh,
another group that was going to the lakefront Friday night. But I decided I don't want to go with a group. I'll go by myself. I just want to look around. I don't want to
right.
spend the whole night there, just
Yeah,
walk around a little bit, hear some music, and then either leave early and go into synagogue, or just head home,
right, right.
because I don't do enough for me.
I hear you. I hear
And I'm
you.
looking to join Toastmasters.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That'll be nice. I can see you
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah.
Definitely.
And of course, on Friday, I had my colonoscopy, endoscopy.
This Friday?
Last week, last
Oh,
Friday, I had it.
who did yours?
Dr. Shub, Rush Shub.
Where
You
is
don't
he
know
located?
him. He's a
No.
member here. He's in Columbia,
What?
off a century, off the 100, off
Oh,
of
okay.
100.
Yeah, I'm due for mine. I got the products. I'm just waiting for a date.
Well, when you're ready, let me know, and I'll give you the doctor's phone number.
Oh,
Um,
I already had my satellite appointment.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
Barbara?
my feeling about that is I did not want to go to a doctor I know personally.
Well,
I
I
went to
wanted to,
Hopkins.
right.
I never, I guess I must have met the gastroenterologists and others who did it, but mostly I just met the nurses and it was
Right. But
practically fine.
I wanted to go to a doctor that I knew and I felt comfortable with.
Well, I just felt Hopkins, is a good imprimatur for good doctors, and it was right here at Knoll North, so it
Yeah,
would
well,
be.
he did it at Owings Mills,
Oh, okay. Wow.
and Linda took me.
I've had Dr. Cross for a while, so.
Up, we're going to start again.
All
Yeah,
right.
to the mute.
You.
All right, to mute.
Contradiction. Okay, we're slowly getting everyone back. All right. Boy, on my sheet, I put AIM start time. Yeah. It's also possible we're losing. Like, I know they're. Okay. Okay, so within the Pardes Machloket Matters program, there are actually two curricula. We've actually done the opening of one of them. And now we're gonna do a truncated, we're going to attempt, this is the piece that I'm like least confident in, but I think we can all do it. We're going to attempt a version from the other curriculum. So we've been doing the Beit Midrash way, the learning about through the text and then having Chavruta discussion. We'll still be doing a little bit of group discussion on this one. This one will be a little harder for online, although being that there are 4 of you, it might work out. At least 4 on camera might work out. Okay. So we're going to look a little bit at first the kind of concept and setup of the Sanhedrin, and then we're going to attempt to act like a Sanhedrin and solve a question. So our first text to look at together, and this part we'll do just as group discussion. I'll read the text and we'll throw in answers. So a Sanhedrin of 23 is arranged in the same layout as a half-circular threshing floor in order that all the judges will see one another and the witness. If we're imagining that 23 is or 71, there are a few different numbers that a Sanhedrin can be. A Sanhedrin is the larger version of a Beit Din, is the rabbinic court that in the Talmudic era was where you would go to try monetary cases and capital cases and all kinds of much bigger cases than we would bring to a Beit Din. A Beit Din was reserved for things like weddings and divorces and conversions, smaller individual cases. And the Sanhedrin, the different numbers would depend on what kind of case. So a 71 member Sanhedrin is going to be a capital case. 23 member is going to be something a little less serious. Always an odd number for the reason we pointed out about 49 earlier, which is there can't be a tie with an odd number. But they are laid out in a half circle. So instead of, if you can imagine the US Supreme Court justices, they're all sitting next to each other at a bench. And they kind of have to lean around to see each other. They're set up in a horseshoe, kind of in a semicircle, which means that everybody can see one another. I've already broken one of the rules of this particular curriculum in that I didn't just move the seats and force us to sit that way. And that's because I don't want to have to move the seats back before services tomorrow morning. So imagine we're sitting. So imagine we're sitting in a semicircle or in a half circle right now. I think the Knesset is laid out this way. Because a little more, okay, yeah, it's in the height, so more of a 3-sided box, rather than a true kind of a U shape. But this shape is meant so that every single person who sits on the Sanhedrin is sitting, can see each other. So what guideline might this be for encouraging disagreement? Guideline when entering into a disagreement might this text be teaching us? Everyone in equal position? Right, everyone can be seen and heard. Frankie. Can't avoid anybody. True. Really, like you have to see everyone, which means you have to see everyone. Can't avoid anyone. And somewhat equal position. I'll notice or I'll also point out that sitting this way implies that rather than answer or the truth kind of being in front, the Supreme Court justices are all facing the same way. The truth or defendant or whatever is that you're analyzing is in front. We're in a semicircle. Where does it move to? It's to the center. So there's where everyone can kind of see it and argue it and actually look at it together. Not exactly the same perspective, but from a similar perspective. Okay, look. That's what we're gonna get to. Did they have a hierarchy? Yep, so we're getting to the second one of what's the hierarchy then?
In a way, everyone's looking at it from a different physical perspective.
Yeah, in a way, everyone's looking at it from a.
And also, you know, the size, that side.
Right, everyone's looking at it from a different perspective, but everyone can see it. Whatever it. Yeah. Okay, in the cases of monetary law and likewise in the cases of ritual impurity and purity, the judges commence expressing their opinions from the greatest of the judges, So our, head of the court, out. In the cases of capital law, the judges commence issuing their opinions from the side where the least significant judges sit. So to answer Lloyd's question of, is there a hierarchy in how they are seated? Yes. So at the center of the U is the primary, is the judge with the most experience, is the Av Beit Din, except that it's not a Beit Din, is the head of the whole system, and they move out from the person at the center to those with the least experience that are newest to the court. So in a case of monetary law or ritual impurity, which are, by the way, lower stakes than capital offenses, they start at the center, they offer opinions starting at the center and work out. In a capital case, they start at the sides and work toward the one with the gadol, one with the most experience.
It doesn't say, is it monetary or that?
Dine Mamon. Yeah, it doesn't actually say that. Working with this one's working from their from the Purdy's translation, but or it's possible that I accidentally cut off words at the beginning. I probably cut off a word at the beginning accidentally. I'll double check. Okay, so now who should express their opinion first in the capital case? The least experienced. But why? Why? Celia and then Lynn.
So they won't be influenced by the people with more experience.
They wouldn't be influenced by those with more experience.
I'm saying that people with more experience might have an understanding of some of the more difficult concepts in monetary law or the ritual purity and purity, but for capital cases, nobody's got expertise. You don't want anybody, so everybody needs to hear it with a clean mind.
I suggest maybe the gadol goes first in the monetary and the impurity laws because they might have, because they have the most experience, they might have the most understanding of complexities of those sorts of laws. But when it comes to capital cases, I don't really want anyone to have more experience than anyone else on the complexity and the reality. You don't want to see capital cases. So go around to get every perspective. I heard Celia, when you said influence, I heard Aura saying you don't want them to sway, similar, and then Jane, and then.
When the higher judges can offer their opinion last, it's kind of a way can be a way to put down some of the other, some of the lower judges and increase their own self-worth. So I don't necessarily see that.
Yes, the gadol going last could be a putting down the earlier opinions and
And most of them speaking last.
And it depends on who counts last or first.
Potentially, I think that perhaps this experienced going and grabbing the capital case would be presenting more carefully and more thought out argument, and somebody more experienced might possibly be sort of reciting from work. Because they've got the experience, they've seen it all, they've done it, and somebody less experienced may be more cautious and perhaps more thoughtful.
I'm saying the newest judges, the less experienced judges might still recognize severity, the weight of the case that they're approaching, whereas the more experienced might start to go on rote, and in a capital case that can happen. We can't have someone doing that. This happens to rabbis. You need to make sure that you still have the kind of newer and more careful and more analytical perspective that still understands the weight. Going for Sandra and then Zach.
I don't know. I find it very unappealing to consider that there is a concern that the higher federal will disparage the opinion before him. But it is interesting. I run a litigation unit of about 10 attorneys, and I usually go from the least experienced to discussing something. I usually go from the least experienced to the more experienced, because the other less experienced people bring ideas to the discussion that other people haven't thought of, or I'm not, to think that we have subdued those to other ideas that we believe, whether that's environmentally, and then we move up to the more experienced people, and the more experienced people are delighted to hear from the young people. And you don't against each other, and I don't imagine that there's any a group of decision makers would want to listen to less experienced people who are going to put them down. Anyway, the atmosphere that I find it makes the younger people feel more respect, and we're treating them with respect. And yes, the more senior people may say, well, that's a nice idea, but fact is that that's not allowed, because of such and such a statute. So I'm kind of wondering about the other orders of the monetary and religious hearing ideas and thinking, well, there we have a tradition of what's right and what's wrong. We need so much discussion. And
So I'm gonna just pull this together. So Sandra's saying that you've actually done this of having the less experienced on a litigation team share their ideas first, and then you're more likely to hear the kind of off the walls idea, the ideas that the more experienced might not have thought about because they may be going on route. And perhaps that that can be delightful, ideally, certainly not in a way to put others down, but I'm sure that does happen. Thank goodness not with your group. But that perhaps with the monetary and the ritual purity, there's a tradition, we should know what it is, and the case can end sooner if we just start with the gadol who understands the complexities and just call it done. So the guideline of this one, was there? Zach?
Just generally, what decisions rendered by majority vote, and do they have equal vote?
For decisions rendered by majority, yeah, I think so. I believe so. I'd have to go back and examine the Gemara, but yeah.
Stuff. Either party was less experienced, because eventually everybody has the same vote. We want people to vote
you think that there's a right way to answer that question, you want to vote with the right decision.
Right, so Zach's point, because it's gonna be by majority and everyone's gonna have a vote. You don't wanna essentially intimidate the young ones out, the newer ones out of sharing their vote. And sort of going, oh, okay, I guess everyone's voting this way.
Maybe you also want to step in line.
Or you might be tempted to have them step in line, or perhaps if the gadol goes first, they're gonna feel like they have to. So that's the guideline that Pardes offers for this particular one, is making sure that no one feels intimidated out of sharing their opinion. Of allowing those who might be most likely to be intimidated to share their opinion first, to make sure they actually have the opportunity to share their opinion instead of perhaps parroting the opinion of someone more experienced out of fear. So guideline number 1, sit so everyone can hear and see one another and see what's going on, and placing the actual issue at the center. Guideline number 2, make sure no one is intimidated out of sharing. Text number 3, and now in the Talmud of Sanhedrin, Rav Kahana says, in a Sanhedrin where all judges saw fit to convict the defendant in a case of capital law, they acquit him. If everyone says, yes, he's guilty, they don't actually carry out the capital offense. Yes, capital cases. Yeah. Andrew.
I learned about this before, so, with that, a little bit, it's because if nobody, not one of them, find anything redeeming about the person, about the defendant, there must be something wrong with the court. If not one of them could find something that would be redeeming for him, and so that way they would for him, because
Not if no one judge, and remember, a capital case, Sanhedrin case is 71 judges. If not one of them could find something redeeming, then there must be something against the defendant. And so it's not, and so it's not carried out. I also encourage us to ask yourself honestly, no one has to share on this one, but just reflect and ask yourself honestly. Are you more confident in your opinion when everyone around you shares the same opinion? Or if there's at least one that's going to make you think? This one, the guideline is be careful not to be surrounded only by those who agree. Okay, our last text is guideline on page 6 of my section. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says they place on the Sanhedrin only one who knows how to render a carcass of a creeping animal pure by Torah law. By the way, a sheretz, a creeping animal, is absolutely blatantly, clearly in the pshat of the Torah, impure. So what is the guideline here? You only manage to get to be a judge on the Sanhedrin if you can find a way to prove the carcass of a sheretz pure. You have to be able to play devil's advocate. You must be able to hear an argument from both sides. Know how to argue both sides before voting. Okay, so those are our guidelines. We're not actually going to do the sitting where everybody can see each other because, again, I don't want to have to rearrange the seats again later. But guidelines are sit where everyone can be heard. Make sure no one is intimidated out of sharing their opinion. Be careful not to be surrounded by only others with your opinion, and know how to argue both sides. Okay. So flip to the next page. This is an example scenario that Pardes offers for this lesson. Again, we're doing it in kind of a micro version. I'm going to read us the scenario, and we're going to break into groups of 4. And there will be a few steps in the groups of 4. But first I'm going to read through the scenario for all of us, and then we'll go on to the next steps. So 2 months ago, a board member of the Orchard Institute of Jewish Studies, Pardes means orchard, by the way, and one of the largest donors to Orchard, asked his old friend, retired Senator Craig McNeil, to come and speak to the Orchard student body next Tuesday about his recent book on how high tech can bring peace to the Middle East. This was written before October 7th. Last week, a recent immigrant from a Muslim-majority country carried out a shooting attack in a school gymnasium in the former senator's home state, resulting in the loss of human life. Within the hour, McNeil tweeted, "Barbarians and savages." In a television interview, he called for supporting a travel ban that would include the attacker's country of origin. In addition, he called for all Muslims in the US to fill out a questionnaire asking if they denounced a list of terror organizations and swore allegiance to the United States of America and its Constitution. The responses became swiftly. Lawmakers across the aisle and several civil rights organizations, as well as many Jewish organizations, harshly condemned his tweet as being racist and un-American and referred to his suggestion of a questionnaire as a loyalty oath, which they argued is unconstitutional and against the First Amendment. A meme portraying former Senator McNeil with a poster of Senator Joseph McCarthy in the background reading, "The new McNeilism starts today," went viral, being shared by millions on social media. McNeil responded in another television interview that his tweet was only referring to terrorists and not to all Muslims. In addition, he criticized the TV interview for not focusing on the real victims of the story, the people who lost their lives and their families. The speaking event, set to take place next week within Orchard, has already been advertised on Facebook. As a result, numerous Orchard alumni have written comments and sent emails asking that the talk be canceled, as it would give his statement and proposals legitimacy and a platform. They believe that it is critical that Orchard, as a Jewish organization, express a clear moral voice that rejects such religious discrimination by rescinding the invitation. Yesterday afternoon, Orchard students started a petition to boycott the talk if it is not canceled. So far, a quarter of the student body has signed the petition, and it is likely that this number will grow rapidly, even though there is a silent minority of students who privately express their desire in conversations with staff and faculty members not to cancel the talk. The board member who invited him feels very disappointed and hurt by the reaction of the student body and strongly believes that the talk should not be canceled under any circumstance, as Orchard needs to be a place where all voices are heard. There is no institutional policy nor precedent for how to proceed in such situations. The president of Orchard has therefore decided to gather you, representatives of the board and student body, including some who has signed the petition and some who have not, or not yet, to engage in a constructive controversy exercise in order to come up with a proposal for how best to proceed in this tense and divisive situation. How many of you have an opinion? Like, I don't want to know what it is. How many of you have an opinion, cancel or not cancel, like already? Yeah. I want you to try to set aside that. Now, groups of 4, like actually 4 as much as possible this time. Groups of 4, I want you to then break into 2, because you're going to swap. And 2 of you in your group of 4 discuss arguments to cancel the speaker, and 2 of you discuss arguments to not cancel the speaker. Okay, in a few minutes, you'll switch. All right, form small groups and half of you discuss yes and half of you discuss no. Then we'll switch.
Talk about this. Come on, people, turn on your camera so I can see you. Hello. Anybody home? Gail, Harlan, Barbara, Carl, Evan.
Online, just try to come up with yeses and no's and discuss.
I'm here, Geraldine, but I'm working on stuff. I'm just listening. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have enjoyed listening to this. Thank you.
You can,
Hi,
once you have
buddy.
your groups and it's time, once you have your groups and it's time to do your subgroups, you can break away and then come back together.
Okay. So should we cancel the speaker or should we let the speaker come on?
And just try to find out which outlet's most convenient. Our our battery
Once you're
is
breaking
low.
into the smaller groups, you can split off further for space if you need.
We're plugged in. Does anybody think that because it's a higher level of, a higher institution of learning, that we should be able to hear what needs to be said or what he's going to say?
Okay, we're plugged in. Come closer.
Yeah, honey, move close. Don't let her scare you.
Freedom of speech does allow you to say what you want to say. It does not mean you can get up and say fire in a crowded theater, but you do have the right to your opinion. I mean, there's an old saying, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
Right.
On the other hand, they do have the right to censor someone and not have them speak if they think that by having them there, it may incite a riot. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
But I don't get the impression the risk is a riot. They haven't mentioned that in the setting up the scenario, just that there's a lot of disdain. And
but in this day and age, you have disdain for somebody. People are slaves to their emotions and they react to them very badly.
yes, but does
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Right, I know, and that's good. But does a Jewish group have an obligation to, I mean, I think for me, I feel like I know what the right thing is. It's not necessarily the smart thing.
Mm.
Wait a minute. Okay, this is a Jewish group that they're
Yes,
describing?
Orchard. This is a, you know, look, this has been going on everywhere, particularly since October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and not just Jewish groups, but, you know, certainly it becomes an issue. And we've seen it play out in college campuses and so forth. I don't know how different it is for an organization that isn't a college. So maybe there's less of an obligation to air all points of view, but and you know, and we know what they, you know, it's a tough one because we've seen it with people that we who have been very anti-Semitic on college campuses and so forth. We don't like it. And it would feel very comforting if the powers that be there were against letting in these speakers. But this guy's already been invited, and as offensive as his speech may be, they have to make a decision about it.
Well, you know, the library allows pro-Palestinian groups to not just speak at the library, but to demonstrate at our libraries. And it is a public forum. So do they have the right to do that, even though they represent hatred and bigotry? Because it is an organization that, first of all, is governmental, and number two is ruled by free speech. So they don't have a choice.
You haven't already in your kind of subgroup, wrap up the thoughts you're on now and start thinking about reasons for the opposite of what you have been discussing.
I just think that they should have the right to put down and say, no, we don't want you speaking here. That's all. Whether it's a private organization or a religious or quasi-governmental. That's just my opinion.
Okay. If it's governmental, they don't have the right because of free speech.
Right.
A private organization has the legal right because it's not bound by, you know, you know, the Constitution and the amendments. But, you know, the question is morally, I mean, it's like, I know the right answer is let the man speak. But that is not a comfortable answer.
No, it
so
isn't.
You know, I'm not on either side. I'm on the fence. I see both sides and I'm bothered by it because I don't have an answer. I mean, you know, as I said, I know what the right answer is, but it doesn't seem like the smart answer.
Wait a minute. Now, this is a Jewish group.
It's a Jewish organization that has a guy who has said anti-Muslim things. This was before October 7th. And who and now the members or I'm not sure if they're students. I've had to go back and reread it.
Okay. This is what it was, an old friend who invited a single donor. This guy donates a lot of money. The largest single donors to this Jewish organization, invited his old friend, retired Senator McNeil, to come and speak to the Orchard student body about his recent book on how high tech can bring peace to the Middle East. And yet, when there was a recent immigrant from a Muslim majority a shooting attack at a school gymnasium in the former senator's home state, resulting in loss of life, within that hour, McNeil tweeted "barbarians and savages." It's like he just clumped everybody who might be in a Muslim into that category. And it's like, I wouldn't want to be lumped as a Black person and all Blacks are XYZ or all Jews are XYZ. His response really created a lot of dissent among the students who denounced what he did, and they swiftly came down and did not want, all sorts of groups and civil rights groups, etc. His tweet as being racist and un-American and referred to, the questionnaire as a loyalty. Now, I would have an issue with loyalty oath and wants the Muslim to sign a loyalty oath to the United States.
Yeah, on the other hand, the man was very, very upset. It may not actually represent his more reasoned views, but his emotional response to a horrific situation. And it is possible that he may not be what he is accused of. There certainly should be some kind of a dialogue. But on the other hand, I also, since it turns out I realized there were students there, that they, I think there's this tendency to want to shut people down and not hear their thinking. And
I think your subgroups have had a good amount of time to each think about yes or no. I'll invite you to remerge if you haven't already. I see some of the groups have. Remerge your subgroups and see if together one kind of share notes. Maybe some of your subgroup thought of something that you didn't, and see if you have any proposal that you could come to as a group for what Orchard should be doing.
I would say.
So
about 5 more minutes.
I agree with you in terms of it needs to be heard. The difference. I think there needs to be a dialogue. Now, whether it's going to be in front of the whole school body, I don't know. Is there a different way of doing this, like somebody interviewing or talking to them, and then they can present this? Saves. So it's not like, a big protest in front of, well, people can still protest on that, but maybe a different way of having the speaker presented and not qualified, but you hit on a point in which we discussed earlier. This might have been an innate kind of reaction to the hurt that he was feeling in his community, so, and yet he might have some very significant contributions in terms of how we can use technology to bring people to the Middle East. So yeah.
I have the same feeling that we really need on this topic a panel discussion or something like that with him to discuss and get clarification about what his ideas are now that he's had a little time to calm down, and to recognize that if he was tweeting stuff, he was, in a highly emotional state, and he might have, developed more mature ideas after the fact. And that, he shouldn't be dismissed out of hand.
Yeah. I think also on the other hand, it give people an opportunity to maybe have a better understanding of why he made this kind of knee-jerk kind of out there statement. Well, I would say I'm qualifying it as knee-jerk, but why he made the statements, you know. So but I would prefer not to shut them down totally. I preferred more, like you said, a panel discussion or some other which
Yeah.
still
But
have
maybe prior to his speech about technology. Said because it is such a hot button issue that it would have to be discussed and settled before people could calm down and listen to his ideas on technology, which may have nothing to do with any of the other controversy.
yeah.
But people aren't going to listen until they calm down,
Right, exactly.
and they have to do something to help people calm down and get into their thinking modes, into the driver of the elephant.
And when I saw some of the demonstrations, I think some of the students didn't understand the whole concept, everything that was going on. You know, you might still feel the same way, but have that ability to listen to different sides, and you might change your mind about a stand or something like, or have a better understanding why you're taking a particular stand on something. So, yeah. Wow. Gail, did you want to say anything else, Harlan?
Or
Y'all,
Evan, who's hasn't.
Evan is working. He's listening. We're gonna let him live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan's working, so he's multitasking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that Barbara's idea is.
Well, it was Jerry Lynn spoke it
right.
at first, but I had the idea
Right,
at the
your
same
your
time.
idea was a good one.
Yeah,
Being,
I'm listening as well, y'all.
Okay.
All right.
So
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm just listening. I was driving home through all of this.
then
I-
okay. Hopefully you're home and safe and you can now communicate without being in danger.
well, I'm home safe, yeah, but I'm still gonna listen.
All right. We'll allow you to do that. Look, I'll give you a pass.
Oh, you're gonna give me a pass? Aren't y'all wonderful?
I would say between Jerry Lynn and me, we can keep up the conversation.
Okay, that'll be fine. Anyway, I'm back. I'm muting again. Bye.
All right.
bye.
Okay. Yeah. We'll solve all the world's problems just right here on our Zoom screen.
Yes.
Oh, that's Gail May.
Yes, right.
She's
And-
a Texan just like I am.
Yes, and I've got my computer plugged in, so I don't have to worry about time limits.
Yeah. This other computer. I had 3 things going at one time, but now I'm down to 2.
But basically, I would be inclined to follow the rules of the organization.
Which would
They
be
don't have rules for this. That was the problem.
Oh.
If they'd had rules, then they could always default to the rules.
Okay.
It said they didn't have them.
Do we need 2 more minutes? Do we think we can come back? Give me a 2 if you want 2 more minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna take another look at the front door.
Oh, please don't. Ben had too much stuff out. Let me mute us.
oh boy.
Linda, Chris? All right. I can tell we're all still deep in discussion, which is good. I'm happy to let you keep going, or we can stop and leave. Tammy wanted to stop and leave. We feel good to come back? Do we need a few more? We can be here all night, literally, like, it's really actually okay. It's Shavuot, we can be here all night if we want. Okay. Okay. You guys almost ready? Okay. There will be some presentation by group. Now I tell you. All right. So we'll go around. I think I see 6 groups, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, is that right? Or are you all one bit? You guys. Okay. Okay, great. So it's okay. I'm gonna go around. I'm gonna ask each group to share one reason you came up with for keeping the speaker, one reason you came up with for canceling the speaker, and any proposal of what to do you may have thought of that isn't just keep or cancel. And just to make sure that we're all going to play like good Beit Hillel members. Once another group has gone, give a different keep or cancel reason. You all, I'm sure, came up with lots. So if you've already heard the reason from a different group, give us a different one. Who wants to go first? Go. Yeah, give us a, yeah. Reason for keeping.
And we postponed and for.
Well, so that's the proposal. And it's okay if the proposals repeat, but.
The key was that he was our. Audience listens to this topic and reacts to what it says, and try to keep the everyone sitting on their hands and the occurrences that happen stay outside.
So a reason for keeping is it's already booked. Make sure he stays on top. Reason to cancel. Inability to provide security. And I heard many of you started a proposal to postpone. Right. Proposal of.
Well, that's our bad.
The proposals were left. A proposal of indefinitely postpone in hopes that things calm down and that we can come back to you. Okay. That's good. I'm not picking. Just had your hand up.
So reason to keep it was someone, you know, the parent said someone was actually
Sorry.
that's not a minor thing to get someone like that to speak necessarily. Our board member probably pulls some strings to make that happen. That isn't necessarily something that can always happen. A reason to cancel it, I mean, his recent actions, he's clearly xenophobic.
attacking the character.
And that's not really about that, you know, the, that the institute wants to promote.
But the keep was, as a retired senator. We're not necessarily gonna be able to get him again. The donor did a lot of work to get him. I'm repeating. And reason for canceling is showing a certain amount of xenophobia, which is counter to the values of our institution. Do you have a proposal?
Absolutely.
Of course you did.
Our proposal is a few things. Number one, rather than holding it, so number one is rather than being just the speaker, to talk to the senator ahead of time, make sure he's okay with this, which is clearly he's been digging in on this issue of Muslims and such. So we would like to reach out to the local Muslim community, find a speaker from their community that they might be willing to have. For the two of them that actually needed a dialogue together with somebody moderating this conversation to keep it civil and respectful. Because when we're going to have more people involved now, because now we're inviting the community, we need to move this to another venue, community center, it's on the bigger, better hours, which allows us to suddenly be in a much more neutral space, allows us to bring people together, and allows people to have a conversation.
To just pass the microphone. Our proposal is to bring in a speaker on the same topic from the Muslim community and a moderator in order to kind of balance out the conversation. I think I'm making things. And because we're now working with two communities to also move it to a larger and more neutral venue. Okay, now I'm just gonna go around.
So, I'm gonna start with what you talked about again, which is basically what we were proposing, that we needed a second speaker who's kind of going to talk on the possibly other side. So basically.
Similar proposal, great.
Venue, but we didn't think about having people and not. But the other thing, yeah, was just to be out, instead of saying barbarians and something or other, then we get that kites and dirty Jews. Then how would you have felt about that?
So is that one of their reasons that
I'm just saying that may, I do think a little bit, you know.
Right.
Okay, and we also wanted to know, a little bit more of the background about the shooting, whether it was just an individual, and I mean, we wanted to know more about the background.
your team approached with curiosity? What actually happened? How would we feel if the wording had been derogatory toward us, and how can we kind of move past that?
And then the only.
Did you have a reason reasons for wording against? Freedom of speech is for keeping, yep. So looking for ways to let it still happen. Lawyer group. The group in the middle with two lawyers. Or yeah, lawyer. Yeah. Sure. Okay, no proposal from the lawyers, just debate, okay.
One of the problems with having invited speaker was the perspective of the public that this Jewish organization is promoting anti-Muslim. You know, that was a big concern to us, and it reminded us of the discussion about the colored cards, about whether you're looking at it from a personal point of view, or the grand, the larger worldwide scheme of liberty and fully just control oppression. And the reasons to have the speaker were more disorganized. It went along the lines of First Amendment and basically our proposal was, the closest we came to the proposal was that we would start the speech, and obviously, in the town meeting. But we would begin with a couple things, talk to the speaker about when you limited to the topic, which would be kind of moved from it. And then tell her, introduce the speaker by saying, you know, this organization, Council is announcing, we strongly disagree with this, you know, this particular thing that he has said. And now let's move on to.
Your reason two, similar freedom of speech, you know, let it slide, there's repetition. But the reason to cancel would be a concern about the public opinion of what does that imply about the organization's beliefs, and does it mean that does it give the impression that the organization would support anti-Muslim words and actions? So your proposal is to very clearly denounce that piece and to make sure that his speech, assuming it continues, is very much kept to topic, and have the shepherd's hook ready. And potentially debate.
Adding criminal than our own organization, some sort of contrary. And we all press, you know,
right,
putting it out of the press that the Jewish organization trashes this program.
Very clear message. Clear messaging and involving. I just want to make sure we get the last two groups in. Cantor's group.
For time's sake, I'm just gonna jump to a proposal.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what we focused on. That we postpone for a lot of the reasons that it said security, you know, to calm people down. We would like to make, whether it's viewed as sincere or not is an entirely different thing. That is something that the guests or attendees of the event could decide for themselves if they want to attend. But a more genuine attempt at teshuva, or a more formal apology by the senator, as you know, a reflection of his actions, not just, you know, a 30-second soundbite on a TV interview. And also because of the fact that, you know, we focus on this, you know, people who believe that Orchard as a Jewish organization express a clear moral voice that rejects religious discrimination. We should also be focusing on other Jewish values, such as allowing for teshuva, which is an important Jewish value as well, probably one that predates, you know, not allowing religious discrimination. But that's another thing entirely. But also this is something that just came to my head right now that I haven't discussed, and I'm sorry. Maybe not, you know, right then, but at some point, and my recent experiences in Minneapolis inspired me of this, to maybe talk to the donor and say, are you willing to make this a repeating program where we alternate people of different views who come and speak, and are you willing to be a sponsor for this event, and we can invite, you know, so that people can hear from different perspectives. If this donor still feels it's important, that Orchard needs to be a place where all voices are heard. So
Okay, I'll try to summarize. That was so the proposal is similar to, we have a similar postpone for security and calming things down, but to keep it ultimately to keep in order to your big reason for keeping is the importance of tshuva in the Jewish tradition and permitting the speaker the opportunity to do tshuva. You point out the value of tshuva is actually older within our Jewish tradition of Jewish values than being against religious discrimination, and that we want to allow that opportunity. And an additional proposal could be asking the donor who wants to ensure that all voices are heard to consider sponsoring an ongoing series on different topics with different speakers that might be kind of opposing. So
Yeah, it's a little different than what we were, was have a panel discussion.
yeah, I'm just summarizing what Cantor said, not, yeah. Okay, and our last group, any reason to keep, cancel, any proposal?
Similar ideas, but the reason for keeping is number one, this person, the senator, had a value. The moment we were looking at a broader scale of why did we invite him to begin with? And the fact that he slipped and said something maybe inappropriate should not be falling into the thought process of cancel culture, where, okay, he said something and then he's just thrown out just because of that. And also, so the teaching on the students not to act this way, as a cancel culture, if someone said something and that's it, you just cancel everything he ever did, just because he said it, and give you an opportunity to have it maybe explain himself better. So that was what.
Okay. So the four, just the one, there was a reason we selected him in the first place to speak. He has expertise that we want to hear about, and a history and a title and. Right. Right. Positive history, and we don't want to.
What again was the potential, not quite as much as people viewing the organization as dignity of the organization, but more as the safety. And as far as solution, there were some ideas of knowing what you're going to talk about and kind of try to keep it in some kind of a frame to not go away.
Okay, so our four was for keeping him, to respect his history and not to let one slip mean that we go into cancel and to still hear what he has to talk about, which is the proposal, is to make sure that we restrict his speaking to what he was asked to come speak about. And the reason for potentially canceling has to do a lot with safety, primarily with safety. Okay, we've now heard lots of reasons. You may have had more reasons in your discussion. Show of hands, are we keeping our speaker? Keeping? You want to keep? Vote, we're going to vote. Are you keeping or are we canceling? Postponing is keeping, yeah. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. He said postponing is keeping. I don't know. I'm going to say postponing is canceled. Yeah. Right, postponing indefinitely is a lot like quietly canceling. Yeah. All right. Okay, there was a lot more. Okay, I admit there were didn't hear all of the depth of the qualifications for when and how long to postpone and what amount of tshuva he had to do first. Point is, one, do we all actually try on coming up with reasons from our initial gut reaction might have been? If our initial gut was like, cancel that, or come on, keep in. Do we at least think through ideas from both perspectives? Or did we try to get past our own 49? No. Poll the disagreements. Yeah. How many said does anyone now, after discussing and thinking and perhaps proposing proposing postponement, does anyone actually think just totally cancel? Yeah. Just like, no. Yeah. And so it's like, it's so funny, when I took the class, like, again, they wrote this scenario prior to October 7th, and anything and everything that has happened with any of our Congress members and senators since then. Again, I started this class on October 10th, and they said, we wanted to come up with a different scenario. But there's just like, this one feels so real, and it's such a real tough decision that an organization might have to make, and that we'd have to be able to have a discussion as a group to get there. And we'd have to be able to listen for the full 49 and 49. So by way of kind of concluding our evening, I'm gonna just do when we, the Machloket Matter suggestions for ways of healthy disagreement is that even when we are feeling like we know for sure, recognize that no one of us actually has the ability to know all of truth. That really only God has all 50 pieces of information. And even if we think that we know it because we think we have all 49, we have 49 reasons that it's one way, there might be another 49 reasons that it's another way. Open to hearing that. Be open when we have a discussion to listening fully to what the other side is suggesting and saying before responding. By the way, if the other side isn't willing to enter into the discussion in the same way, then it's not actually possible to have machloket l'shem shamayim. Not every disagreement actually can be. And unfortunately, I don't have a solve for those ones. But if there's a way to encourage actual, real listening, even through deep disagreement, full, 49-1 on either side disagreement, be open to listening, and be open to follow in the path of Beit Hillel, of not only listening, but listening well enough to be able to say back what the other said before saying our own opinion. Recognize the moments where we might be so riled up that our elephants are going a little off track. Take the moment to think, gee, maybe I'm prioritizing a different moral foundation here. This other person probably has a reason for the one that they're prioritizing. Other people has a reason for the one that they're prioritizing. So ultimately, set up in a way, find the way to have the discussion in a way that all voices can be heard, that all faces can be seen, and that all opinions actually have a space, that no one feels shut down, letting the less experienced first, and just in our lives in general, we find the ways to not allow ourselves to be totally surrounded only by those who agree with us. So I'll conclude with a story from the Talmud, which I didn't include in your sheets, but from Baba Metzia, page 84a. Of two chavrutot, two study partners, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. By way of background, Reish Lakish, before becoming a Torah scholar, was a bandit. So was a highwayman, a man of crime. Rabbi Yochanan taught Reish Lakish Torah. He taught him Mishnah, and he turned him into a great man. Eventually, Reish Lakish became one of the outstanding Torah scholars of his generation. One day in the Beit Midrash, the sages were engaging in a dispute concerning the following baraita. A baraita is a phrase around the time of the Mishnah, but not actually in Mishnah, with regard to a sword, a knife, a dagger, a spear, a hand sickle, and a harvest sickle. From what moment do they become susceptible to ritual impurity? Objects that can cut become are susceptible to ritual impurity. And the question is, at what moment in making one of them does it become susceptible to ritual impurity? A baraita answers, from the time of the completion of their manufacture, which is the halacha with regard to metal vessels in general. So the sages inquired, when is the completion of their manufacture? Rabbi Yochanan says it's from when fires them in the furnace. Reish Lakish says it's when one scores them in water. After you take them out of fire, you put them into water to stop the heat and to solidify them. And Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, in a moment, I assume, of his elephant getting a little out of control, a bandit knows his bandit. Calls back forward Reish Lakish's former life, i.e. Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, you're an expert in weaponry. Of course you'd know the answer to this one. And Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, you know what benefit did you provide me by bringing me close to Torah? Over there amongst the bandits, they called me a leader. And over here amongst the Torah scholars, they call me a leader. Rabbi Yochanan said, I provided benefit to you because I brought you close to God under the wings of the divine present. As a result of the quarrel, Rabbi Yochanan was offended, which in turn affected Reish Lakish, who fell ill, and ultimately Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Reish Lakish, died. Yochanan was sorely pained over losing him. The rabbi said, who will calm Rabbi Yochanan's mind and comfort him over the loss? And they said, let Rabbi Elazar ben Padat go, as his statements are sharp. He's very clever. He can be a new study partner for Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Elazar ben Padat went and he sat with Rabbi Yochanan. With regard to every matter that Rabbi Yochanan would say, Rabbi Elazar ben Padat would say to him, here's a ruling which taught that supports your opinion. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, are you supposed to be comparable to the son of Lakish, of Reish Lakish? In my discussion with Reish Lakish, when I would state a matter, he would raise 24 difficulties against me in an attempt to disprove my claim. And I would answer with 24 answers, and halacha by itself would become more broadened and therefore clarified. Yet you say to me, this is a ruling that's taught that supports my opinion. Do I not know that what I say is good? By being rebutted by Reish Lakish served him a purpose. Those disagreements allowed for the Torah to be deeper. For Rabbi Yochanan, having just oh yes, I agree with you. Oh yes, I agree with you, did not allow him the same level of Torah study that he had with Reish Lakish. We know a little bit of a taste of everything we've learned in this story. See what can go wrong when our arguments are arguments of attack. Rabbi Yochanan reminds Reish Lakish, oh, of course you would know when a weapon is complete. And we see the reminder that a good discussion and a good disagreement actually deepens and allows us to see more and from more perspective. Instead of only seeing what we see in the text, see a broader view of all that God has to offer with our Torah. May we, on this Shavuot, and this evening of receiving the Torah, also be willing to receive the Torah of disagreement in ways to enter into disagreement more healthfully, and make those disagreements bring us to broader understanding and bring us more to broader understanding and less to shutting down and locking out, canceling. Chag Sameach. Run slightly over when we were supposed to start services. Do we want like 5 minutes for re-equalizing of liquids, as one of my Zoom moderators would say? You know, get a new glass of water, release the old glass of water, whatever it might be. So at 10:40, we'll start Mariv.
Yeah. It'll take like 15 minutes.
Mariv will only be like 15 minutes. Please make sure we still have a minion. Please. You are welcome to keep the sheets, and you're welcome to keep the stacks of values cards if you'd like. If you don't want to keep them, the sheets are in the email if you want to just download them. If you don't want to keep the sheets, you can put them up here. That one.
Oh.